do you think about growing up as a military child?
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, this is my. I'm pulling the mic close, and you guys can see the mic. Does the word carny come to mind? Because we are literally right behind the carny guys. Okay, so meaning carny guys, right? Like they had to travel throughout the United States, follow their parents and shit stuff. I gotta edit that. And military kids, same, literally right behind the carnies. It's that simple. We had to follow our parents, and they moved every 3 years. Four if you were lucky, five if you were exceptional. So yeah, so growing up as a military kid, yeah, it was the best because uh, you could always meet new friends that you were guaranteed to lose in 3 years. Um, and we didn't have the concept as an adult to go, well, you know what? I know that in 3 years I'm going to lose this friend. So I'm just going to, go, I'm going to put it out there. And I know as we get closer to the last 4 months of that family's military time, that I'm going to never see that person again. Maybe, through like email and stuff. And, you know, but you weren't going to see them physically, right, in face. So that was pretty cool. So just yeah, and I'm assuming now that I'm reflecting on it, the Carney people feel the same way. They go from city to city, and they know they're like, hey, I got 1 week, and then they're out there trying to like hit up relationships in 1 week, man. So we did have it better. So there we go. See, there's always a positive and a negative. But yeah, and so as adults, as we age, right, the carny people, right, what do they end up doing? I have no idea because I have yet to meet a carny person who's like, yeah, I grew up in a carnival environment when I was a kid, and now I'm an adult, and this is what I do. So I can't speak for them, but I have met many military kids who have grown up and said, this is what I do. And um, I'm going to call it what it is, at least until people get on here and start saying, no, I'm the opposite. But most of them weren't extremely successful, or maybe even very successful. And I think it's based on the roots. You didn't have the roots, you had no guidance. You got a little bit of guidance and a little bit of roots, right? And like, the 3 years that you got to hang with your friends and hear what the family spoke about, right? Because that all gets dropped down into your brain when you're a kid, right? So yeah, so that's my thoughts. Literally right behind that carnies. So anyway, with that, let me go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Lee. I live in the Seattle metropolitan area, and I grew up in a military family, and we lived in Europe, which is awesome. And I lived there from the ages of 10 to 18. So I spent a really swath of time in Europe during my teenage years and middle school and high school years. Um, whereas most of you here maybe following me now, you did as well, or you didn't, and you were fortunate enough to just be here in the United States. I say fortunate because I think that your opportunities for friendships were a little more available versus us that went to outside the U.S. Um, because we also had to endure living amongst cultures and schools with language and cultural deficiencies, right? So in other words, we were like 10 years old, like me, had no idea what a German language was, and I'm living in a German school, or I'm going to a German school. And I know some of you are like, what? No, what? We went to military schools. Well, you have to understand, some of us moved over there, like I did, and we lived there. So we became residents of Germany. So therefore, I was not in the military schools because my father retired prior to us moving there, and therefore I was a German citizen, and therefore I had to go to a German school, even though I was American. So I ran into all those barriers. So for the lucky ones like you guys who might be following, saying, "Hey, man, I went to blah blah blah," Nuremberg High School, for example, because I was stationed in Nuremberg. Um, and you went to the middle school there prior to going to Nuremberg High School. Good for you. That's cool. Like you were able to like go to English speaking schools without having to worry about language barriers and cultural barriers. So anyway, so that's where I'm at. But with that, I will say that developed a unique personality that to this date this seems to come up a lot because people are like, "You're odd," not odd like you're odd, but more like you're odd, like you're different. Well, yeah, because my thought processes that were formed between the ages of 10 and 18 are different than the people in the U.S. or maybe who even went to a military school outside of the U.S. were formed between the ages of 10 and 18. Right? You still had that culture of 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 Americanism. You brought it from, let's just say, Texas. You brought it from Texas to Germany. You were still a Texan in your head. You went to an American school where everyone spoke American English, American and then, so really nothing changed except you were living in an environment that was maybe Germany. We'll just call it Germany because that's what we're talking about right now. But your entire surroundings were still English, and you were still indoctrinated into the English culture or into the American culture. You just came from Texas or Minnesota or New York. And so there were some differences, of course. But if you went straight from the United States to a German community in a German school, that's a wake up call. And that's a shocker. And that's what I Um, so with that, I want to move forward with what my intentions are here. So my intentions are like to just discuss things that are like, what the heck is that? So like my wife, she'll ask questions to kind of kickstart it. Like, what's your thoughts about? Boom, and then I'll run with it, and I'll also come up with ideas and just things that I've um, cultivated over time in terms of like that are unique that now that I'm back in the US, how they were different in Europe and how they are in the US and how that's carried forward from a young age to a more middle age. It's a middle class suburban night in the Seattle metropolitan area. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, so don't forget to like and subscribe. I hate saying that. I hate it. But everyone says you have to do it, but whatever. It helps the algorithms somehow. They kick in and go, oh, guys, whatever. Follow me in, and we're going to talk about everything from childhood to health to fitness to having your kids grow up, and move to now you got empty nest to I don't know, just things that make you go, what's up with that, right? Because there are so many things in the U.S. that are like, what's up with that? And and in Europe, my brain will reflect back from when I was a kid, and I literally will think completely different because I've run into this issue so many times with others that I've met, where I just completely think different than what everyone else thinks, and I'm assuming it's from either and or a military background and or growing up in a completely different environment with cultural and language differences at a young age. Let's roll with that. And yeah, just roll with me. Let's see how this goes. This is good stuff. All right. Till next time, Oh, by the way, I got this on a place that we all shop online. I'm not sure what I can say and what I can't say, but nevertheless. Um, so I'm going to figure out how to turn this off for now. Till next time.